On June 30th, 1908, at around 7:17 a.m., the largest explosion ever recorded in human history occurred over the Tunguska region of Serbia. An ear-splitting explosion ripped through the air, a sound that could only be described as constant artillery fire. The very ground trembled, and a blinding flash seared the sky. In a heartbeat, 80 million trees were reduced to splinters, flattened like matchsticks by an invisible force. The shockwave raced outwards across 2,150 square kilometers. The air itself seemed to ignite, and a column of fire and smoke rose miles into the sky. The Tunguska event unfolded in the remote wilderness of Siberia, a region where the forests were more populated by wildlife than people. This sparse population proved to be a blessing in disguise, as the devastating impact claimed only 3 human lives, a surprisingly low number considering the scale of the destruction. However, the reindeer herds of Tunguska weren't so fortunate. Thousands perished, caught in the searing inferno, or lost to the powerful shockwave that ripped through the taiga. For decades, the Tunguska event remained one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. What was the cause of this historic explosion, and what are the chances such an event could happen again? Grab some hot cocoa and bundle up with us as we discuss the Tunguska event. Due to the Tunguska region being so sparsely populated, there were not many eyewitnesses to the event. However, a Russian mineralogist investigating the event documented a chilling quote from one of the few. At breakfast time, I was sitting by the house at Vanavara trading post, approximately 65 kilometers south of the explosion. I suddenly saw that directly to the north, over Onkul's Tunguska road, the sky split in two and fire appeared high and wide over the forest. The split in the sky grew larger, and the entire northern side was covered with fire. At that moment, I became so hot that I couldn't bear it, as if my shirt was on fire. I wanted to tear off my shirt and throw it down, but then the sky shut closed, and a strong thump sounded, and I was thrown a few meters. I lost my senses for a moment, but then my wife ran out and led me to the house. After that, such noise came, as if rocks were falling or cannons were firing. The earth shook, and when I was on the ground, I pressed my head down, fearing rocks would smash it. When the sky opened up, hot wind raced between the houses, like from cannons, which left traces in the ground like pathways, and it damaged some crops. Later, we saw that many windows were shattered, and in the barn, a part of the iron lock snapped. The Evenki people, who lived in the area, observed a blue light, brighter than the sun itself, streaking across the heavens, leaving a shimmering trail in its wake. As it reached the horizon, it burst into a brilliant flash, like a giant firework, and a huge cloud billowed upwards, growing larger and larger. From this cloud, a pillar of fire erupted, painting the land below in a fiery red glow. The pillar then split in two, the flames slowly dying down until they turned to black smoke that drifted away on the wind. A tense silence followed, broken only by the sounds of the forest. Then, about 10 minutes later, a series of deep booms echoed across the land, like the roar of distant cannons, and the earth trembled. The explosion was a terrifying spectacle of immense power. The size of the blast was estimated to be between 10 and 40 megatons of TNT, making it 660 to 2,600 times greater than the Hiroshima bomb. The sheer intensity of the explosion was felt far and wide, registering on seismic stations thousands of miles away in Croatia, the United Kingdom, and even Washington, D.C. The shockwave that followed was like an earthquake, measuring 5.0 on the Richter magnitude scale. In the days that followed the explosion, the skies above Russia and much of Europe put on a breathtaking display. The normally dark canvas of night was replaced with a mesmerizing glow. Hues of red, purple, and green shimmered and swirled, creating an ethereal yet ominous scene. Some theorize that a black hole, minuscule yet incredibly dense, could be responsible for the Tunguska event. This black hole, they propose, would have passed through the Earth, creating a shockwave as it entered the planet and exited from the other side. While still hypothetical in the field of cosmology, primordial black holes would be capable of such a feat. The evidence, however, like the bright lights seen over Europe, suggests that the blast happened in the atmosphere, not deep inside the Earth. Also, if a black hole had passed through the Earth, it would have caused some strange effects in the Atlantic Ocean, where it is thought to have exited. But there were no reports of any unusual tidal patterns or disturbances in microbarometric sensors at that time. Others claim an alien spacecraft caused the explosion, a nuclear-powered craft malfunctioning and accidentally exploding. The main thought behind this theory is that the blast's timing seems too precise to be accidental. A 5-hour delay would have shifted the target to St. Petersburg. A slight course change could have devastated populated areas in China or India. Instead, the explosion occurred perfectly above one of the most desolate regions on Earth. Almost like the remote location was chosen intentionally by an extraterrestrial pilot aiming to minimize casualties. Astrophysicist Wolfgang Kundt posited that for thousands of years, superheated gases made their way through the Earth's upper mantle via subterranean volcanoes. And on June 30th, 1908, the buildup of pressure became too great, causing the gas to burst through several kilometers of rock and shoot 200 kilometers into the air. From there, it drifted downwind like a wick until it found a source of ignition, such as lightning. This event, he believed, would have lasted an hour, which would explain why witnesses claimed to hear thunderous booms over a similar time frame. The Tunguska event remained all but hidden away in the remote wilderness of Siberia. Years passed, filled with the turmoil of World War I, the Russian Revolution, and fierce civil war. The world was preoccupied with its own troubles, and the strange happenings at Tunguska were largely forgotten. Almost 2 decades slipped away before anyone ventured into the depths of the Tunguska region to seek answers. In 1921, the Soviet Academy of Sciences sent a determined geologist named Leonid Kulik on an expedition to uncover the truth. But the journey was treacherous, the terrain unforgiving. The dense forests proved too challenging, and Kulik was forced to turn back, his quest unfinished. It wasn't until 1927 when he embarked on another expedition. This time, with the help of native Evenki hunters, did he succeed in reaching his destination, the site of the long-ago explosion. Even after 19 long years, the land still bore the scars of that fateful day. The trees lay flattened like fallen soldiers, slanting away from the epicenter. Amongst all the destruction, one thing stood out to Kulik. An impact crater was nowhere to be found. And while the trees around the epicenter were affected by the blast, the ones directly underneath it remained upright, despite being severely burnt. Determined to find answers, Kulik began by searching for impact craters, believing the explosion was caused by a meteorite. He discovered several small, round depressions, each measuring between 10 and 50 meters in diameter, possibly smaller craters left by the fragmentation of the meteor upon impact. However, upon closer inspection, Kulik realized these were not craters at all, but naturally formed bog holes, ruling out the possibility of a meteorite striking the ground and deepening the mystery of Tunguska. The pursuit to understand the Tunguska event continued, drawing more explorers and scientists to the remote region in the 1950s and 60s, hoping to find a piece of the puzzle. And their persistence paid off. Deep within the soil of the blast radius, they discovered microscopic spheres made of silicate and magnetite. These spheres, so small they could hardly be seen with the naked eye, held the key to unlocking the truth behind the Tunguska event. After meticulous analysis of the soil, the scientists found that the concentration of the spheres was not uniform, but rather exhibited a distribution pattern consistent with that of a meteor airburst, where the meteor exploded miles above the planet's surface, leaving no recoverable fragments behind. While alternative theories about the Tunguska event persist, the meteor airburst theory is compellingly supported by evidence from explosion analysis. Studies like Operation Blowdown, where the US evaluated the use of nuclear weapons for jungle clearing in Vietnam, offer insights into the effects of large-scale detonations. Soviet experiments conducted in the mid-1960s further bolster this theory. By detonating small explosive charges in model forests, they were able to recreate the distinctive butterfly-shaped blast patterns observed at the Tunguska site, suggesting an airburst as the likely cause. The largest explosion ever recorded in human history was caused by a meteor that burst into microscopic fragments upon entering the atmosphere. And while undeniably powerful, what makes it more terrifying is that this event is not a singular occurrence. Physicists estimate Tunguska-sized events occur about once every 300 to 1,000 years. In fact, a similar event, though smaller in scale, happened over the southern Ural region in Russia just over a decade ago. On February 15, 2013, an object, now known as the Chelyabinsk meteor, exploded in a meteor airburst. And while significantly smaller than the object that caused the Tunguska event, it still managed to generate an explosion equivalent to 400 to 500 kilotons of TNT, and is the largest known natural object to have entered Earth's atmosphere since 1908. Remarkably, both the Tunguska and Chelyabinsk events resulted in minimal loss of life. These were incredibly powerful explosions, capable of causing widespread devastation. Yet, by what seems like a stroke of sheer luck, or perhaps some extraterrestrially guiding hand, they occurred in sparsely populated areas. The reality is, another event is not a matter of if, but when. And while we can hope for a similar outcome, we must also be prepared for the possibility of a far more devastating scenario. If you guys made it to the end of the video and enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and sharing the video to help grow the channel. Thank you.